Here we are for round 14 of the 70s versus the 90s. In this round, we have George Lucas's American Graffiti versus Richard Linklater's Dazed and Confused. And this one was fun, man, because both these movies have great soundtracks, like get the nostalgia fueled and all that shit. And, they're both essentially about, like, group of teens coming of age type shit, getting fucked up, trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives type shit. And the first one, American Graffiti, centers around four young men. You get Ron Howard, Richard Dreyfuss, Charles Martin Smith, and Paul Matt. And Richard Dreyfuss and Ron Howard, they're going off to college. And Ron Howard, he's ready to go. He's even telling his girlfriend, he's like, maybe we should see other people just to make sure that this is actually love and whatnot. Richard Dreyfuss, he's the one that's hesitant to go because, well, maybe I don't want to leave. Maybe I want to just stay here. I got a bunch of shit. All that kind of shit. And so, but by the end of the movie, those, switch, because Ron Howard realized maybe I'm in love type shit. And, and then Richard Dreyfuss, he lives a life, like the stuff with the Pharaohs and Bo Hopkins is phenomenal and that shit. Like, that shit's great. And then, Charles Martin Smith, he's kind of the dweeby one of it, and Ron Howard lets him use his car so he can get a little pussy, so he has adventures with that, and then Paul Matt, in my opinion, the best one, very underrated actor of the 70s. Paul Matt is John Milner in American Graffiti is just one, like, he's such a badass, and he's the guy that's never leaving that town, he why would he? He's the badass, nobody can beat him on the road type shit, and even the guy that does, or thinks he can, Harrison Ford, the whole movie, he's trying to challenge Milner, and at the end, he wins, but the thing about it is one of the most heartbreaking sequences in that movie, probably the most, is the fact that, like, man, the guy almost had me, and if he hadn't cracked, but he'll never know, like, the fact that he'll never know that he's the best, because, like, Charles Martin Smith's like, oh, no, you're the best, it's like, that guy already knows he's the best, but he has to know. He doesn't want somebody to tell him. He's got to know. And the fact that dude almost beat him, and if had he not crashed out, he could have lost, that shit's gonna haunt him forever, and you see that shit in his face, and, like, even, like, the comedy with the younger chick that gets in his car and shit, their whole back and forth is great, like, and the way he handles that shit is a smooth gentleman, he's like, you would think that kind of guy would be an asshole, but he's the most likable one in the fucking movie. That's the guy you want to hang out with. Everybody else is just kind of a fucking bitch ass, like, especially Richard Dreyfuss. But, like, his shit with the Pharaohs and Bo Hopkins, that shit is fucking great, But the thing about this movie, though, that's all it really is. Like, and even, like, his the little sage-like advice he gets from Wolfman Jack when he meets him, give that dedication, that these moments are great, but as a whole, like, it's melded together with a fucking nostalgic soundtrack that makes you fucking forget, like, the discrepancies of the film. Because, like, when you move forward to something like Dazed and Confused, and it's like, you realize, like, American Graffiti had 3 screenwriters. There's only one Linklater. Linklater wrote and directed this film, and, like, I guarantee you there was not a stitch of dialogue that wasn't written by Linklater. And even if there were improvisations, they were probably so minuscule that nobody even, like, cares to bring them up and shit. And also, like, when you see just the cinematic technique that he applies to this fucking film, just the shots and the fucking editing and the way he uses the music, there is not anything in this movie that is there, like, on accident. Everything is there for a fucking purpose, especially the music. The music is used to convey emotions and shit in a way that's, like, fucking, like, every character has, like, certain music they're listening to, and there's certain, like, shit going on and everything. It uses to orchestrate. And everybody in the movie is great. Like, where in American Graffiti, the acting is pretty shitty. Other than Paul Matt and Charles Martin Smith doing heavy lifting, and, some of the other side characters like Bo Hopkins, Wolfman Jack, the rest of them are just fucking mid as fuck. But every single actor in Dazed and Confused is fucking phenomenal. And, like, they're both movies are all a cast full of up-and-coming, like, relatively unknown actors and shit that basically became stars off of this shit, Like, even American Graffiti, like, that movie basically kicked off, like, 50s nostalgia for the 70s, because a year later, like, Happy Days becomes a series, and it's got Ron Howard playing basically just what that character in American Graffiti probably was like in high school, as well as using the same opening song that American Graffiti used, Rock Around the Clock, for their fucking opening song, until they got that stupid ass song, These Days of Ours. Before they got that shit, it was Rock Around the Clock, and in my opinion, it's way better, because that jingle sucks, because it gets stuck in your head, it's terrible. But also, though, you get 93, you see all these other up and comers, but they're way better at acting. It could just be because Linklater's the better director, or he knew the talent that fit perfectly. Because like Ben Affleck, the definitive douche, always at his best when he's playing a fucking bitch. Like it's just fucking like, dude, you believe that shit? Like just like he was in Mallrats, he fucking plays that shit so perfect. It's like, bro, nobody likes you but Matt Damon. Like that shit is just, that shit's real. And then a fucking star-making performance from Matthew McConaughey. Like, nobody but McConaughey could get away with saying as many creeping lines as this motherfucker does. But, you know, that's how, like, true these characters are, like, how motherfuckers actually are. Like, Parker Posey. Like, fucking, she is just insanely, like, great as a bitch. Like, just fucking, just, the way she plays it off is so cold. Like, one of the best act, you know, and then fucking Rory Cochrane, dude, the amount of weed that dude smokes in them, and nothing sexier than Mila Jovovich fucking rolling that joint, motherfucker, dude. Like, and Michelle Burke, oh, she was, what a vision, you know, just every single person. And Cole Hauser, man, how great is Cole Hauser? And that fucking scene in the truck with Jeremy London, he's like trying to get him to sign that contract, just trying to remind him, like, you know, what it all means, football, all that fucking shit. The intensity, man, you feel that shit because you know London felt that shit. Like, man, but you know, Linklater, man, he crafts his shit so perfectly because, like, and it's weird, like with American Graffiti, it's one of those movies when you first watch it, it's good. Because you can understand, even like somebody seeing it in 1973 who like probably came of age in the 50s and like saw like this, it probably triggered a lot of nostalgia, shit they remembered, but the movie itself does not hold up over time. Because the more you watch American Graffiti, the more shitty you realize it is. And like with Dazed and Confused, it's the exact opposite. Because like when you first see Dazed and Confused, you're like, oh, this is a really good movie, but you don't understand why it's good because there's so much shit going on, and every viewing gets better because you see something that you didn't see before. And like, I've probably seen the film at least a good 20 times, and I still haven't picked apart every fucking layer of that film. And that's just, yet again, the genius of a filmmaker that Linklater is like, dude can direct circles around Lucas. You know, when it comes to like, you know, special effects and ancillary rights, you know, Lucas is the man. You can't fuck with him. But when it comes to making like a real ass movie about real ass humans, like, motherfucker knows nothing because it's all superficial. And the most atrocious thing about American Graffiti is that fucking thing at the end where they do the fates of the main characters like they're real ass people. These are fictional characters. Nobody cares. And you made a fucking sequel. Like, I get wanting to make money, but you already told us what happens. Why do we need to fucking see this shit? Nobody wants to see this shit. It was hard enough to get through it the first fucking time. You know, but whereas like with Dazed and Confused, man, you don't ever want this movie to end. Like, this is the party you want to. I don't want, and it could be a difference between California and Texas, you know, because first, fuck California, you know, and it just, Texas is always the best, you know, no, whether you agree with politics, whatever, fuck, Texas is always the best. It's just a place to be where you can just be you and have fun type shit, you know, and like, that's the thing. I'd rather get, even the douchebags, I'd still get fucked up with them in Dazed and Confused. I couldn't stand to hang around any of the American Graffiti motherfuckers. So that's why Dazed and Confused clearly wins this round. And which is funny because right now the score sits, for those of you all keeping score, it's 8-6 70s. And what's funny though, the 70s lose this round, but in a way they still win in spirit because the 90s are, the 90s film takes place in the 70s, which is, you know, it's the way it goes because where, you know, the 50s nostalgia fueled the 70s, it was 70s nostalgia that fueled the 90s, which is funny because that redhead in Dazed and Confused has that line where it's like, just talking about the every other decade theory. Every other decade is great. Like the 50s were trash, 60s were rad. It's like the 70s clearly sucks, so maybe the 80s are rad. It can't get any worse. It kind of did. But that statement right there is more powerful than the bullshit little time capsule fucking ending that George Lucas tacked on to fucking American Graffiti. And what's funny about that, though, is like by the time you get to the 90s and everybody had such, you know, you have all this 70s nostalgia, you realize like how great the 70s were and probably the greatest decade, especially for filmmaking. I mean, they're still up by 2, but you know, the 90s came back this round. You know, they always got a few 1-2 punches in them. It's like, but one thing I will say though, even though Dazed and Confused won this round, the one thing that always like fucked me off, the whole like hazing shit. You know, I get that shit happen, you know, I never encountered it. I guess that shit was done by the time I was I was a teen in high school and shit. But I wish a motherfucker would. I don't like that shit is fucking bullshit. Like, you could always fight back. That's the one thing I could never understand about that hazing shit. Is like, why take that shit? Like, I'll make you eat that goddamn paddle. Fucking come me with that shit. Like, fuck that shit. And also, too, as a stoner film, it's one of the best stoner films because it's not so explicitly a stoner film. Like, you got your biggest stoner character, which is Rory Cochrane, but everybody else in this is smoking weed. And what's cool about it is you see, like, they ain't all like Rory Cochrane. Look at Nicky Cat. This dude is like aggressive as fuck on weed. Like, he's got like, I mean, he may have been, drinking too, but still, but then you got other motherfuckers like, they're just chill. They're just being, weed is great, whatever the fuck, and it's funny because Richard Dreyfuss has a line that I thought was particularly funny in American Graffiti because he's riding with the Pharaohs and they'll see, oh, look at that guy, look at that wimp. He's got this really great snatch. He's like, yeah, wimps get all the snatch. And it's like, then you see this drug dealer in Dazed and Confused with fine ass Mila Jovovich. He's like, you know what? He's right. Wimps really do get all the snatch, and they're usually dealing drugs. So think about that shit. But this round, Dazed and Confused wins it for the 90s. 70s are still up by 2, 8-6 70s. And so, if I've said anything wrong or something you disagree with, feel free to comment me, debate me. I don't give a fuck. I don't have a life. I'll make all you film bros cry. This is, it brings me pleasure. I'm here to eviscerate cinema in the same way I am to try to reinvigorate it, because I'm, all the gaslighting and shit. Time to put it to academic study, And, biggest takeaway, Linklater's the fucking man. Can direct circles around Lucas, and on top of that, one of the few filmmakers that can appeal to the art film crowd and the people that just like to go see regular ass fucking movies, it's just fucking great. Next round, we got Don Siegel's Charlie Varick versus David Mamet's Heist. So, probably gonna have a little crime theme June. So let's see how that goes. But right now, 8-6 70s, Linklater's the man. Fuck California, Texas is the best.